Good morning. My name is Val Oliver. I'm a member of the Earth Stewardship Team, and today is Earth Day, which is why one of the passions of the Earth Stewardship Team is water, and so we do have a little gift for you later in the service. We'll be passing out these little, they're not actually stickers, they're more like clingies, so you don't have to worry about sticking on a bad place, but put it at the most prominent water vessel you have in your home as your visitors come in, to remind you to conserve our water. We're passionate about that. Some of you know I'm also the puppet director of the Puppet Zone here at CSL. Some of you don't even know we have a Puppet Zone. But we do. We actually took a little hiatus, and then I looked up that word, and it said a brief break. And I was hearing these voices out of my closet. They were like little screams, and I couldn't figure out, but it was the puppets in those bins trying to get out. So I had to put on my puppet director shirt. And bring it back. So back by popular demand, we have the Puppet Zone.
Hey, Patrick, do you want to sing a song about the most wonderful thing in the world?
Okay, what is it? Candy?
No.
$1 million?
No.
Mom and Dad.
Well, besides that, the most wonderful thing in the world is...
Yeah?
Water!
Water?
Right. Now when I say water, you repeat after me.
Water?
Right.
Lenny, I don't want to sing a song about water.
Come on, it'll be great. Water.
Water.
It's a very wonderful thing. Water.
Water.
Good. Water. It makes you want to just sing. Water. I can't hear you. Water.
Water.
You can wash your face with it. Water.
Water.
You can take a shower with it. Water. Water. Water.
Water.
Water for sale. Free water. Free water. Hey, all you kids want to join in? Water. Comes pouring down when it rains. Water. Water. Makes you wet and then you must change. Water. Water. It's an after dinner drink. Water. Make a skating rink. Water. Water. Hey Patrick, you look kind of bored. Don't you want to sing with us?
No.
Come on, you must have something you'd like to say.
Okay. Water. I really don't like the song. Water. Water. And I think it's getting too long. Water.
Water. You can squirt your friend with it. Water. Your bubble bath with it. Water. Water. Everybody sing along. Water. It's a very wonderful thing. Water.
Give me a break.
Water. It makes you want to just sing. Water. Water. You can sink a boat in it. Water. Ice cream float in it. Water.
Ice cream and water?
I guess I got carried away. Patrick, there must be something you like about water.
No.
Do you like water skiing?
Well,
Swimming?
yeah.
Deep sea diving?
Yeah, but
Tidal wave dodging?
what? Water can also cause damage with floods and hurricanes.
That's right, Alicia. Patrick, remember when your basement got flooded last summer? I know you went snorkeling, but it took them 3 days to clean it up.
That was neat.
Water. You can sail the world on it. Water.
So, good girl, water.
Water. It's just sensational, celebrational, hand washable, thirst quenchable, daily lookable water. Water. Water.
I'm thirsty.
Water.
Okay, so we're so delighted to have our Puppet Zone back. Thank you so much, Val. We're so happy to, you'll get to see the team later. They're going to do another Puppet Zone performance for us a little bit later in Yeah, I almost said in the show. Isn't that funny? Yeah, so it's Earth Day, and sometimes we take Earth Day very seriously because there's lots of stuff going on, and we can take our spirituality really seriously too. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted us to do this book this month. If you haven't gotten this book yet, you really should get this book. If Only God Would Give Me a Sign. We have it in the bookstore. And she was delightful. I know she was here last week. And so I just wanted to read to you. I got the opportunity to be one of the people she asked to have on the back of the book. I spent years waiting for a neon sign or flashing light from God, but it never came. If only God would give me a sign, reminds me that there are signs all on the path. I just have to pay attention. Hilarious and pithy, I smiled and groaned in recognition of my own journey in every chapter. I'm recommending this book to everyone in my community. Thanks for letting us walk part of your path with you, Linda. Now it feels like you're walking with me on mine. So I really meant that when I wrote that, which is one of the reasons why we chose it for our book of the month for this month, April, because it is a very lighthearted look at our spiritual walk, at our enlightenment and our desire to grow. And we have the puppet zone here, to help us remember that all of this stuff does not have to be so overwhelmingly serious. We can actually engage in it in a lighthearted way, and we don't have to be always just focused on what's not working. Today we're also going to focus on what is working, because that is so important as we lighten the load. So I just invite you to open your hearts and minds to whatever is here for you this morning. Yeah, so lightens the load of our spirituality, doesn't it, a little bit? We can become so serious. I was telling somebody the other day, I think when they were putting the sort of humor and laughter and kind of silly when they were giving that out at birth, I was standing behind the door. I tend to be very serious about things. They're very important. It's very important, and so I have to tell you that's one of the reasons why I really love this book, because it so lightheartedly reminded me of places on my own journey, and it's an opportunity to embrace our journey a little differently. So our theme for the year, loving the journey, right? We want to love the journey. We want to participate in it, embrace it, and find ways not to be in resistance to it or struggle with it. So I was reading this again, and I was really struck by this section. She talks about the detour signs. The scenic route was the euphemism my mother used for detours, those inconvenient, frustrating, annoying, long and winding roads. Those that you end up taking when the easy, direct route to your destination is closed off, whether it's bridge out, dead end, or just a big orange detour sign on what appears to be a perfectly good road, apparently placed there just to make your life more difficult. It is exasperating, isn't it? 6:35, anyone? Yeah. Over there by the airport, all the places, right? Massive construction, all the things going on, and oh man, it can be challenging, can't it? Sometimes the traffic's a little frustrating, not exactly knowing. Susan had a friend going to work out at American Airlines at the airport the other day. He's been going there, I don't know how many years, every day, Facebook. The other day, I got lost going to work. Because it was so changed, and the signs were not necessarily all that clear. And so I think we can on our spiritual journey, we can get a little frustrated with our signs. And so we have to ask ourselves, what do our signs mean? And the other question is, are we listening to them? Are we listening to the signs? Are we paying attention? Otherwise, we can get lost on what's a very familiar road, which with some upheaval or some change that we're involved in ourselves, all of a sudden looks very different. I was sharing with a friend of mine, actually in my Sangha group, the other day. Actually, I was sharing it with my Sangha group, and I also shared it with my prayer partner because it was very up for me. I noticed that I had a new mantra in my life that I had become aware of. My new mantra was, "Oh God, I'm so frustrated." was frustrated with my new program because I was frustrated that my iPad wouldn't talk to my iPhone. I was frustrated that my iPhone wouldn't talk to my computer. I was frustrated with everything about all the electronics in my life. It had been for almost a month. And what I hadn't realized was, because of this, I had a new mantra that I was using. And that was, I was frustrated. And then I had the nerve to say to my prayer partner, I am so frustrated with being frustrated. I heard a little recognition in the room on that one. Yes. So, these things that we go through, right, they can be frustrating, they can be challenging. And we can, I certainly noticed that partly I was frustrated and challenged with it because I really didn't know what to do about it. New programs that I wasn't familiar with, learning how to, I don't know how to set up the network, I don't know how to do any of that stuff here. And so I found myself, again, frustrated with my inability to participate or my inability to do anything about it. Yeah, so I said, you know what, that is not my mantra anymore. I am putting that mantra aside. I'm no longer saying that. And other than to tell this story today, I have not used those words. And I'm no longer saying that mantra because I actually want to love my journey. We want to love our journey. We need to find another way of looking at it. So I was really struck by her writing about the sign, slow children at play. And she talks about our inner child. You know, when you see the sign, slow, children at play, it might really call to us to bring our inner child out and to become aware of that. And she says, so I brought my inner child, a baby wet and whale, opened a few cans of Play-Doh, and finger painted my way through 6 rolls of white butcher paper. Yet, reconnecting with the child I once was left me flat. And how many times we do this inner child work and we become aware that we need to let our inner child out, and so often, again, it feels sort of heavy, like we have to discover our woundedness and where our child is not being taken care of and loved and appreciated. And it can become kind of heavy. And we tend to, when we're doing inner child work, often to look at what's not working or what wasn't working when we were a kid that we've now brought forward. Perfectly fine work, totally important in many ways, and yet there might also be another way to look at it. And she goes on to say this. My inner child ran away from home sometime during puberty. It's taken decades to discover just how much she took with her. What I miss most is how she would joyfully free-fall from one experience to the next, without fear, trusting herself, because she trusted spirit first. I miss how she would dive into wild, abandoned dance at the first sound of music, race through backyard alleyways just to feel the wind on her face. A cardboard slide down greasy hills, skip through hallways with one hand reaching for the wall, cartwheel spontaneously in a dress, and practice twirling a baton on her walk home from school. Unconcerned was I about any twists or turns in my road ahead. Then I simply took to the road for the play of the journey. Same twists and turns, same stuff going on. And we can either allow it to overwhelm us, frustrate us, make it a really big deal, or we can find a way to play with it, to love the journey, and to re-embrace it as we did when we were children. I was particularly struck by running through the back alleyways, arms stretched out, just to feel the wind on her face. How many of you, when you were kids, do you remember getting on those hillsides and just laying down and rolling down them as fast as you could? And I remember when I was a kid, we had a stream that went through a wooded area down by my school. And, you know, it was a couple miles from my house. My parents didn't think anything of us going down there. And we went completely unsupervised, and we brought buckets home of minnows, and pails of salamanders, and all kinds of other sort of slimy and stinky things. And we would play down there for hours, and we would play pirate, and we would play Robin Crusoe and Shipwrecked and all kinds of things in this patch of uncultivated, undisciplined, undeveloped piece of land. Raising Jason was a very different story. It was very challenging to find places where he could go and play unsupervised like that. We don't do that with our children today, do we? We take them to the playground, we watch them while they're playing, and we take them home again. Things feel much more serious. And yet it's so important. It's so important for us and for our children to find that sort of carefree way of being involved in life, and particularly in nature. There was something about that open space that was undeveloped, that was just ripe for stories and adventures. Jason and his friends, when they were really little, I backed up to the school, and so there was actually a fair amount of area that he could play in unsupervised, which was really great. And there was a ditch there, a drainage ditch there, just made out of dirt and grass and whatever. And he and his friends, they spent hours playing archaeology, and they would dig up things, and then they would make, stuff, and they would play army around it, and I don't know what all they played, because they had this just little space of undeveloped land, just not under human cultivation. So here we are on Earth Day. It's an opportunity to think about how much of our land has been cultivated, has been developed, has been taken over by us as a human species. I think here on Earth Day, we have lots of signs that we can look at. We can look at the ways in which our planet is being decimated. We can look at all the places where there is no undeveloped land anymore. It's challenging to drive through the cities and the suburbs and find one patch of undeveloped acre or half acre where our kids can play. And we can ask ourselves, what do these signs mean? What do these signs mean? And are we listening to the signs? There's so many of them. And it strikes me this Earth Day how particularly important this is because of our need for these open spaces, our need for the wilderness, our need for little patches of wild ground where our children can be creative, where they're not given a game on the television or some video thing that they're doing, but they're actually building their own imaginations. They're actually out there creating something from scratch. We need those open spaces for our children. We need them for ourselves to be able to go out and breathe and get space. I was given for my birthday this amazing book, The Wilderness of John Muir. Oh my goodness, and if you don't know who John Muir was, he was this extraordinary Scotsman who immigrated to the United States as a teenager, and he became the original conservationist. He's the father of our national park system. He discovered Yosemite and camped and lived in the Sierra Nevadas in California, and the descriptions that he writes about, and this is excerpts from all of his journals, are breathtaking beauty. And over and over and over again, he says, I cannot stand beneath this pine tree and not experience my oneness with God. I see the bird winging across the sky, and I hear the song of the meadowlark, and I see it proclaiming its part of the divine. He was so in tune, he's so experienced that nature was truly the presence of God made manifest in the sound of the wind and the pines and in the song of the birds and in so many different ways. And it's been bittersweet reading it. Some of the things that he describes, they don't exist anymore. They simply don't exist. He talks about the carrier pigeons. They would fly by his house where he lived in Wisconsin, Missouri. They would fly by his house and migrating, and they would start in the morning. A half-mile wide band of birds would start in the morning, and the flow of birds would not pass until the evening sunset happened. You could hear the rustle of the winds. Those birds are now extinct today. They're extinct. He talks about carpet of wildflowers when he came over the mountains in California, the mountain range, the coastal mountain range. He came over because he was going towards the Sierras. And he comes over the mountains and he steps there and he sees the central plain of California. Miles this direction, miles this direction. And it is simply a carpet of wildflowers. A carpet of wildflowers in as many miles as you can see. In his own lifetime, he saw that change. And of course, today, it's completely different than that. So it's been bittersweet to read this book, to be transported by him and his experience, and then to know that some of those things are no longer available. And yet it is because of him, one man, one person. That's why we have the National Park System. One person. So he was someone who listened to the signs. He saw what they meant, and he decided that he could make a difference. Not sure when Earth Day started. It might have been in the 70s, the early 70s, wasn't it? 1970. Okay, so Heather's going to show us a little clip. Many of you will recognize this. We'll all date ourselves because we'll recognize this little clip.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it.
Remember that? Yeah. I remember the first time I saw that, I wept. The first time I saw that. It still moves me. And I can remember the beaches looking like that. But so many places we go, they don't look like that anymore, do they? It's pretty amazing that we are faced right now with the possibility that we've taken a detour. That we as a culture, we as a human species, we've taken a detour. And that detour, yeah, it hasn't necessarily boded well for our planet, has it? Here's a picture, one of the Earth signs that we have. This is an image of what's called the Great Pacific Trash Dump. Are you familiar with the Great Pacific Trash Dump? Yeah, it's a place in the Pacific Ocean between Hawaii and Japan. And it's created by the currents as they move through the Pacific Ocean. And it collects all the trash that is brought into the Pacific Ocean through the water systems, through the rivers, from the wind, all the ways in which the trash gets into the Pacific Ocean. This is one portion of that garbage dump. They say it's the largest garbage dump in the world. They don't actually know how big it is. Sometimes what it looks like is this. It looks like packed plastic floating on the surface of the water. Sometimes it looks like this, where the stuff has actually begun to sink. Some of it's on the floor, the seabed. Some of it's in the middle range. The problem is it isn't all so packed tightly into a neat little island. It's actually here and there and patches and up and down and up at the surface and down below. They don't actually know how big it is. There are some estimates that if it were actually all sort of corralled into one space, it would be as large as the size of Texas. Wow. You know what it's made out of? 80%. 80% of what's in this garbage dump in the Pacific is plastic bags, plastic bottles, and plastic from other consumer goods. 80%. 10% are old fishing nets that have gotten loose, and the other 10% is other material. Most of that other material does eventually decay and erode. It can't erode in the water. What does it do in the water? It erodes in the wind. Whatever it does, disintegrates, decomposes. That's the word I'm looking for. It decomposes, but the plastic doesn't. And because it's not in any one defined area, they haven't yet figured out how to harvest it and clean it out. It takes 2 weeks to sail across it. For 2 weeks, you are never without sight of plastic in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Now, that's a really extraordinary thing. I can remember not too long ago, I don't know what, 3, 4, maybe 5 years ago, the big thing was you got to drink a lot of water, particularly for women. You got to drink a lot of water, 8 glasses a day, right? And that translated into 8 bottles a day. 8 bottles of water. I'm never sure I actually achieved that, but I certainly worked at it. And I can remember during that time, I can remember coming here to classes, and we were all trying to be healthy and really taking care of ourselves, and in front of every man, woman, and child in class was a bottle of water. Right? Plastic bottle of water. We had plastic bottles here. Then we decided maybe we shouldn't have so many plastic bottles. It felt like it was a lot of waste, and so we went to those big plastic bottles that you would get, and 5-gallon plastic bottles, and we would have we would have water available here, but we were still having them in plastic bottles. And then this information started coming out. 6 million plastic bags in the United States in one day. One day, 6 million plastic bags. So I can remember at one point, Susan and I had the conversation at home, yeah, maybe not so much, maybe we shouldn't be doing these plastic bottles anymore. We got rid of even our big plastic bottles at home. We got rid of them here. We went all to other kinds of filtration systems. Carrying our water bottle around, the reusable water bottle around, and you know what happened? Lo and behold, I noticed that today, if you sit in one of our classrooms today, you take a class here, nobody has a water bottle. Everybody has either a reusable water bottle or a glass from downstairs from the kitchen. One of the reasons why we use all glass and real silverware in our kitchen. I know for those of us who are cleaning up after everything, it can be a little tedious to do the cleaning up. But we decided to do away with all the plastic, all the paper, all this stuff, not only because it's not biodegradable, but because of the massive amount of energy and electricity and everything that it takes to make all that stuff, let alone then to throw it away. Thanks to Debbie Hine, we have a beautiful new dishwasher. It's fabulous. We're taking the old one and another one, and we're going to put them under the stairway. We're going to have 3 dishwashers.
Wow.
So that we can stay very committed to the not using things that go back into the landfill. Not using plastic. But it's interesting to notice that we didn't go on a big campaign here. I didn't say on Sunday mornings, don't use your plastic bottles anymore, bring your reusable bottles. People just started doing it. A few of us just started noticing it. Lots of people started noticing it. And over a period of time, what happened? We all stopped bringing our plastic bottles. That is what one person can do. That's what happens when we make that kind of a change. And we begin modeling that kind of a change. We don't have to browbeat people with it. We don't have to beat them over the head with it. We don't have to, say, oh, you should be doing this. We just can begin modeling it. We had an interesting conversation in our young adults group. We were talking about these kinds of things a few weeks ago in our young adults group. And I'm not sure how it got onto the subject of trash. I guess because it's a big issue, as you can see. And I said, well, yeah, thanks to Susan, we have almost no trash in our house. We get trash collection twice a week in Coppell, twice a week in Coppell. We're lucky if once a week we have 1 bag of trash. That's it. That's all we throw away. Oh, occasionally there are yard wastes that we don't compost, can't compost, or is either too big to compost or too small for our firewood. So occasionally there's some of that. Sometimes Susan has construction material that she throws away. But by and large, we're lucky if we have one bag of trash a week. The rest of it we recycle. We recycle the plastic. We take the plastic and the paper apart. We put the paper recycling. We take the Susan takes the metal recycling down to metal recycling, and we recycle the paint and all the batteries and all of that stuff. All of that gets recycled, and we've been doing it now long enough that Susan no longer has to remind me. Isn't that great? It's now an automatic part of how we handle our household. And it's astonishing what a difference just making that decision within our own selves makes, what a difference that makes in our household, what an extraordinary change we've experienced over the last couple of years. And we do that here. We recycle all of our paper, we recycle all of our plastic, we recycle as much as we possibly can. And so we make surprisingly little trash, surprisingly little garbage that goes into the landfill, or that ends up here. So you see, one of the things we want to realize is that when we look at these signs, we can become overwhelmed by them, but we can also see that we can enter into it differently and not become so seriously stressed out about it, but begin to see that it actually does matter. What each one of us does, the decisions that we make, no matter how big or how small, every single one of them matters. We noticed this when we were in Alaska. We went on an Alaskan cruise a few years ago, and it was amazing to hear people talk about the difference in the glaciers. So this is 1914, the one side, and 2004, the other side. You can see the glaciers receded all the way up and around the corner. And we saw that as we were in Glacier Bay and all the different places we were cruising, and you could see these massive areas of glacier, and the glacier was like this big on the inside of it. And it had shrunk so much. And so we see these things and we think, well, what can I do? What can I do, one person? How do I make a difference over these glaciers or this massive, issues that we have environmentally? All of it can become so serious, and we can feel so overwhelmed by it. And yet, John Muir is a fabulous example of what one person can do. What we as a community have done, we have ceased to contribute to the use of plastic bottles in the landfills and in the Great Pacific Garbage Dump, simply because we've made a few minor changes to how we are and to how we come together. So we can look at all the signs about how it's not working and really become depressed, or we can look at the signs about how it is working. The bald eagle, fabulous symbol of all of the endangered species that have been brought back. Now that's not to say that there aren't endangered species, but with a will and a willingness to work on them, they do come back. They do survive. The condor is another example. There's many examples of animals that have been driven to the brink of extinction and then actually brought back because somebody cared. Somebody thought it would make a difference. It mattered to somebody. This is a picture of Lake Erie. I grew up outside of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, so I'm very familiar with this lake, and I can remember when it started being on the news, Lake Erie was burning. Like how does that work? How do you burn a lake? I still don't know. I was very young, so I didn't really understand it. Was it oil that was on the top of it? Was it garbage? Was it floating tires? I have no idea. But they showed pictures on the news. Lake Erie is burning. That's how bad it is. And it was dead. You couldn't fish out of Lake Erie. Chesapeake Bay, the same thing. I'm familiar with those areas because I grew up with them. And it was a terrible, terrible, horrible scandal that these things had happened. Today, this is pictures from 2012. This lake is so clean you can fish out of it and you can eat the fish that you take out of it. Because a few people cared. Some people said, yeah, this isn't right. We really need to do something about it. So we may have gone on a detour And that road might have taken us to the brink of destroying this lake, but we can also correct it. We can be a part of making it come together. This picture is of two school children in Africa. They're planting trees. Another huge issue is the desertification of Africa, of the bread belts in the African continent. All the trees that are decimated in the Amazon River and Amazon forest, and we hear about it all the time, all these trees that are being cut down. In Kenya, there are 3 million trees have been planted in the last, I don't know how many years, by a woman who decided that what she could do to help her country, help her people, help make sure that they could survive, that they had food, was she could start planting trees. And however many years later, 3 million trees have been planted. She received the Nobel Prize for this extraordinary thing that has completely changed the landscape in Kenya. Nigeria, the same thing. Nigeria, they were facing this massive famine 30 years ago. There had been a huge drought, a massive famine, because their soil had become so depleted. They mowed down the trees, they planted all the crops and replanted and planted again and replanted, and now there was a drought, and they had their version of the Dust Bowl, and the topsoil was blowing away, and the plants, there was nothing left to nourish the plants. So the farmers, without aid, without any environmental group riding in to rescue, without a government program, without a single dollar, they realized, oh wait, this really isn't working very well, is it? And so they stopped cutting down their trees. And they started planting in and among the trees. They only cleared the land between the trees. They started planting in and among the trees. And their crop load in the last 30 years has completely rebounded. Nigeria is now greener now than it was 30 years ago.
Wow.
Oh. The United States is greener now than it was 25 years ago.
Wow.
Because people are planting trees. Oh yes, they are getting cut down in the forests and the wilderness, and I totally believe that much of that needs to be stopped. But people are planting trees in the cities and in the suburbs. And they're planting trees in the fields that are going fallow. So many family farms have gone fallow. People aren't doing family farming anymore, and all of those farms are all being taken over by trees. They're all being taken back. The United States is greener today than it was 25 years ago. It makes a difference. Every little bit that we do makes a difference. And if we are willing to look at the signs, and we can look at the signs and say, oh, woe is me, isn't this horrible, oh my God, what are we going to do about it? Or we can look at the signs and begin to see that it makes a difference, that what we do makes a difference, and it matters. Now, here's another sign. This sign's a mind symbol. For those of you who are not familiar with it, you see it here every Sunday. Oopsie, wrong way, sorry. So the circle represents the wholeness of God, right? The circle represents everything. And it's a little bit of a fallacy because it represents anything, everything. So there can't be anything outside the circle, right? So we know that the circle is just a symbol of wholeness or oneness, everything that we can say about divine reality. That top portion represents spirit, the impress of life, the conscious decision to decide to move forward, the thought, the place where God said, let there be light, and there was light. The cause, that's the causal aspect of life. The center section is the soul or law, the principle, the creative process, the way in which the divine is made manifest. And this third section down at the bottom is called body, the manifest body of God. And that is the physical created universe. That's what that section represents. The physical created universe, from the farthest reaches of the galaxies to the smallest interior space that you can find in quantum science, and everything in between. In the infinite reality of the physical universe, all is represented by that bottom portion called the manifest body of God. Now, why I point this out today is because this sign, this is one of the portions of this sign that speaks to me so deeply. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about the science of mind in our teachings. Because what you'll notice is that the body of God is contained within the wholeness of the divine. Now, I grew up in the Judeo-Christian culture. I grew up in Catholicism. I've certainly studied a lot of Western religion, and there's a deep teaching that we all grew up with, whether we got it from the Puritan work ethic, whether we got it from our spiritual, religious training. Many of us grew up with the notion that, yeah, this place, not so good, filled with sin, right? Sinful, bad, and our job is to get to heaven, to not be too bound by this world and get to heaven. In the Eastern traditions, they call this world illusion, Maya. It doesn't really exist, doesn't really matter. What matters is enlightenment, to experience one's oneness with the divine. And so, people who are on a deep spiritual path, they simply withdraw. They go to the mountaintops. They become beggars. They beg for their bread so that they can spend all of their time in lofty spiritual thought. But if you go to the East, I've traveled a lot in the Middle East and in the East, in India, in those places like that, what we see is this massive gap between those people who have, those few who have, they have beautiful manicured lawns and beautiful homes and lovely, gorgeous lives, physically lovely, gorgeous lives with enough to eat. And then there's this vast majority of people who don't, who are living in abject poverty. And their countries are not well cared for. Driving through Bangladesh and Pakistan and seeing just how much, what it means when we withdraw from the world. When we say, oh, this is all an illusion, we don't need to care about it. In the West, we've taken our this is bad and wrong from a religious point of view, and we've moved through the Enlightenment, and we've said, oh, well, this doesn't really matter because it's not part of the divine. It's just a bunch of atoms working together like a machine. And the machine we get to use. We get to exploit it for our own good. So that's what we've seen this world as in the last few hundred years, as a place to get what we want because, well, it doesn't matter. It's not part of the divine. To me, science of mind and New Thought really is one of the few places, the few traditions, diving deeply from the indigenous traditions, from the African and Native American and the pagan traditions, diving deeply into those and regathering the physical universe back into the whole. And saying, yeah, no, actually, you know what, this does matter, because this is the manifest body of God. This is the logical and necessary outcome of Spirit's self-awareness. This is the place, actually, where the divine gets to discover itself, express itself. This is God in a form that we can see. This is God experiencing and being wood and being this podium and getting to experience what that's like. This is God in a form that we can see, getting to experience what it's like to be an individual. And this is how Spirit, in a self-aware point way, gets to now actively engage in the physical world through our hands and our voices and our acts and our choices and our way of being in the world. You see, we have now come to the place where we are the divine. All human beings are the divine made manifest, where we're actually now manipulating the physical world in the same way that we might have in the past attributed only to God. We create rivers, we create mountains, we decimate populations, we wipe them out like the dinosaurs were wiped out, and we create whole new strains that have never been seen before. We evolve things that are brand new. We can destroy the planet. We have assumed, as a species, a godlike relationship, not only to our planet on a physical level, but that's actually the place evolution has brought us to. It has brought us to the place where we become the place where creation now begins to happen from a consciously aware point of view. So we get to look at the road we've been on. We get to see the signs of the road that we've been on. We get to decide, has our consciousness taken us on a detour? And can we get back on the road we wanted to be on? And I think if we look at the signs, I think we will see that yes, actually we can get back on the road. Not only can we get back on the road, we have been getting back on the road over and over and over again as people have become aware of what's been going on. The pictures that I showed you earlier, all the places where this detour has been overcome. All of the new ways in which we are harnessing energy or thinking about life differently or looking at the ways in which farming is being done. There's so many, many, many ways and places in which we are now contributing not to the destruction of the earth, but now to reimagining that it's actually part of the divine, that it's actually part of us, that we actually are a part of it, and that we belong here and have to take care of the home in which we live. So we get to look at the signs. We're constantly being asked to look at the signs, and we get to make meaning of them. And we can decide that we're in for doom and gloom, or we can decide that there are things that are being done about it or that could be being done about it. It reminds me a lot about the conversation about 2012. We're in 2012, you know, right? You've noticed that, right? Are you shaking in your boots yet? It's just kind of an extraordinary thing. And I remember people asking me, a couple of years ago, people were asking me, so what does Science of Mind say about 2012? What do you think about 2012? What's important about 2012? And I would say, it comes after 2011 and comes before 2013. Signs are what we make of it. We make meanings of the signs, and this is my favorite sign around 2012. I only had room enough to go up to 2012. That'll freak somebody out someday. That'll be us today, Cal, being freaked out by this. And so we have the opportunity of taking this moment and saying, uh-oh. We have the opportunity of taking whatever's come up until now environmentally, with our social justice issues, with all the things that are going on and all the things that we can say are wrong, and we can point to them and say, see, we are ready for the apocalypse. It is actually happening. We can take all of those signs and prove to ourselves that's what's going on. Or we can take all the signs that we see about how it is working, about how people are making a difference, about how change is coming, about how people are committed to making it be different, and we can say, maybe not so much. Maybe there's something new being revealed. We watched a movie called, I can't remember what it's called right now, by the Pachamama Alliance, The Dreamer, Awakening the Dreamer. We watched Awakening the Dreamer, our young adults group, over the last few months. We've been working through it. And there's this whole conversation about whether or not we are contributing or not contributing, what's really happening. And they show a clip of a man who is giving a talk, and I cannot tell you the information of who he was at the moment, but they listed all of the organizations in the world that are working towards peace and environmental sustainability and social justice. You know how many there are? 2 million.
Wow.
2 million organizations. They said if they had to list it and scroll it on the screen and scroll all of them, we would have to watch it for like a month and a half. Wow. Continuously. That's how many organizations there are working towards peace, sustainability, and social justice. So we may think that we're alone, but we're not. You may think that your little bit of recycling or your little bit of not taking a plastic bag doesn't matter, but it does. You may think that things are going to hell in a handbasket, but they're not, because there are so many people who are participating in a consciousness shift. So a lot of people have gotten together and decided, rather than talking about the apocalypse for 2012, we would talk about Earth 2012. You're going to hear from Sharon Goddard in the Earth Stewardship Group in just a minute. And Sharon asked me a couple of months ago, so are we going to participate in this? And after having taken a look at what's going on, the answer to that is yes. This is a group of evolutionary thinkers, consciousness leaders, who have decided, rather than to buy into the doom and gloom of 2012, to actually say, this is an opportunity, this is a sign, it is a sign, and we can assign any meaning to it we choose. And we're going to assign the meaning of awakening. Of consciousness awakening to its own evolutionary impact. That we understand that we are now the place where evolution is happening, and that we have an impact on it, and that we can begin to focus on all of the ways that we have impacted it for good. And all of that has been, we've been midwifing ourselves to this moment. So that my calendar is supposed to be over December 21st, 2012. On the morning of December 22nd, we will be celebrating birthday of the new consciousness, of the evolution of consciousness. That we will have midwifed it into this new moment where we choose. We choose how we're going to be in relationship to each other. We choose how we're going to be in relationship to the planet. And we take responsibility. We take responsibility for our part in contributing to that. We choose to look at what's working and grow it and support it, and we choose not to be afraid of those things that are not working, because we can show ourselves over and over and over and over again how we have learned and how we have grown and how we have overcome these things as a collective, because we too are part of the whole. We are part of that whole, that circle. We too are a part of it. And everything that we do, every thought that we think, all of that is contributing to this new. So you're going to hear about it. I don't exactly know what we're going to do on the morning of birth 2012. I don't know exactly what we're going to do, but we're going to be joining with people all over the planet. There's an idea that maybe there'll be a fire lit all the way around the planet, wherever the morning sunrise is, so that we can see how this birth moves around the planet. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to participate, but we will be participating. We're also going to be showing Barbara Marx Hubbard, who's very influential in this movement. We're going to be showing her movies in July 20th. You don't want to miss it. We're going to be having a big conversation about it and how we are contributing to this birth and what's beyond that. So this is our opportunity to, yes, see the signs, yes, listen to the signs, but choose which signs we're going to pay attention to and make our own meaning of it and participate in the awakening. So we're going to close with the Earth Stewardship Group coming up here, and they are going to close us out with some affirmations. So come on up here. Sharon, who else is coming up here with you? Marcy and Dawn, so come on up here. By the way, let me just tell you, Sharon is, come on up here, Sharon is the one who makes all the fabulous signs in the restrooms that tell us all the wonderful earth tips. Sharon is the one who's responsible for that. Please stand here, you'll be heard.
Okay, since we are all studying science of mind, and in those beliefs, we believe that we should be compassionate for each other and also for the planet. I agree, to be a catalyst for a world that works for everyone.
I agree to be a catalyst for a world that works for everyone.
I agree to be a catalyst for a world that works for everyone. And I agree to be a catalyst for the world that works for everyone.
Will you say that with us?
I agree to be a catalyst for a world that works for everyone.
Turf? You? Turf. You've been giving us lots of cool ideas about what we could do to help the planet and how we can participate in our own lives. Do you have anything else to add?
Well, yes, I do. I would like to ask the CSL community if you can give me some examples of green efforts made here at the center. Dorma, is that you raising your hand?
Yes, the center has light sensors throughout the building so that we conserve electricity when no one is in the room.
Good job. Anybody else?
Surely you've read those signs in the back.
Yes.
Yes. What else have we done?
Recycle.
Recycle bins.
Yes. Anybody else?
We compost. That's true.
We wash dishes.
We wash dishes.
I wash dishes.
Good job, good job. This summer, we're going to raise everyone's consciousness by having classes around these different subjects. So on the 24th, where are the 24th of June, we're going to have water conservation.
And the kids are passing out the sticker that Val was talking about beforehand.
On Sunday the 29th of July at 1 o'clock, we're going to have simplicity. And on August the 26th at 1 o'clock on Sunday, we're going to have energy efficiency. So I hope you'll all come and raise your consciousness. We want you to take this information to your home, to your work, and out into the world.